The night stretched wide over the Nile, the dark velvet sky speckled with 1,000 shimmering stars. The river, smooth as polished obsidian, reflected the silver light of the crescent moon, its surface rippling gently beneath the passage of a lone felucca. The sail, pale and billowing, caught the night wind, guiding the vessel downstream like a ghost gliding over water. On board, a traveler sat quietly at the boat's edge, fingertips grazing the cool surface of the river. They had come here seeking something, though they knew not what. The Nile, ancient and eternal, whispered in hushed tones as the boatman, an old man with eyes that had seen many lifetimes, steered the felucca with steady hands. His wrinkled face was bathed in moonlight, and his voice, when he finally spoke, was as deep as the river itself. "The Nile holds many secrets," he murmured, eyes fixed on the horizon where golden temple spires peeked from behind the darkened palms. "It remembers all who have walked its banks, all who have dared to listen to its whispers." The traveler tilted their head, watching the reflections of ancient statues standing guard along the shore. Their stone faces, softened by time, seemed to hold unspoken stories within their silent lips. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and damp earth, and the only sound was the rhythmic creaking of the boat and the soft lapping of water against its hull. "There is a legend," the boatman continued, his voice blending with the rustling of palm fronds in the distance. "Beneath these waters, hidden deep in the shifting sands, lies a treasure. Not of gold nor jewels, but something far greater. It is said that only those with a peaceful heart may glimpse it." The traveler furrowed their brow, eyes drifting to the inky depths below. The water, so still yet so alive, seemed to shimmer with unseen mysteries. "What kind of treasure?" they asked, their voice barely above a whisper. The old man smiled, his face illuminated by the glow of a nearby village lantern. The light flickered on the water's surface, distorting and reforming like a mirage. "Ah," he said, "that is for the river to decide." The felucca glided past a forgotten ruin, its weathered columns half buried in shadow. The traveler felt something stir within, a quiet knowing, an unspoken understanding. Perhaps the treasure was not meant to be found with hands, but with the soul. The boat drifted onward, the night cradling them in its endless embrace. And as the traveler closed their eyes, listening to the heartbeat of the river, they felt it peace vast and deep as the Nile itself. The desert stretched endlessly beneath the moon's pale glow, an ocean of golden dunes shifting beneath the breath of the wind. The wanderer walked alone, his feet sinking into the cool sand with each weary step. He had followed the Nile's banks for days, searching for something, though he knew not what. The river's distant murmur had guided him, a whispered promise in the stillness of the night. But now the river was far behind him, and only silence remained. The air was thick with the scent of warm earth and forgotten time. Just as his strength threatened to leave him, the wind carried a new sound, soft, like water kissing stone. He lifted his head. There, nestled between the dunes, bathed in silver light, was something impossible. An oasis. Towering date palms stretched toward the stars, their fronds swaying lazily, untouched by the harsh desert winds. A pool of water, deep and still, shimmered beneath the moon, reflecting the heavens as though the sky had fallen into its embrace. Flowers bloomed in soft clusters along the shore, their fragrance delicate and dreamlike. The wanderers stepped forward, drawn by the oasis's quiet song, its beauty so perfect it felt like a mirage. "You have found what many seek but never see." The voice, gentle as the wind, made him turn. A woman stood at the water's edge, draped in flowing white linen that seemed woven from the night itself. Her face was timeless, her dark eyes deep as the river, holding secrets as old as Egypt. She did not move, yet she was as much a part of this place as the palms, the sand, the stars. "Who are you?" the wanderer asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman tilted her head, a small smile gracing her lips. "I am the guardian of this place, the keeper of its silence, the watcher of its dreams." The wanderer took a hesitant step closer, the soft earth beneath his feet cool and forgiving. "Why does this place exist?" he asked. The guardian's gaze drifted across the water, her voice low, almost reverent. "Long ago, a pharaoh sought to escape the weight of his throne. He did not wish for a tomb of gold, nor a name carved in stone. He desired only peace. And so he followed the river's whispers, and it led him here." The wanderer's breath slowed, his heart steadying. He understood now. This was not a place meant to be conquered or owned. It was a sanctuary, a resting place not of kings, but of the soul. "And the pharaoh?" he asked. The guardian looked at him then, her eyes glistening in the moonlight. "He is here, in the wind, in the water. And so too shall all who seek not riches, but peace." A hush fell over them, broken only by the soft rustle of palm fronds. The wanderer knelt by the water's edge, cupping the cool liquid in his hands. As it slipped through his fingers, he felt something shift within him, something that had long been restless now settling into quiet stillness. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in his journey, he was home. The city of Thebes slumbered beneath a blanket of moonlight, its grand temples and towering columns bathed in silver. The sacred Nile, dark and endless, wound its way through the heart of the land, whispering to the stones, the sand, the very soul of Egypt. Within the great palace, where torches flickered in their sconces and the scent of lotus filled the air, a young scribe sat hunched over a table of polished alabaster. He had been summoned in the dead of night. The pharaoh had dreamed. The scribe's reed pen trembled in his grasp as he dipped it into the ink, awaiting the ruler's words. Before him, Pharaoh Seti lay upon a gilded couch, his face calm yet distant, as if still wandering the unseen roads of his vision. The chamber was silent, save for the occasional rustle of sheer linen curtains swaying in the midnight breeze. Then, in a voice as deep as the river itself, the pharaoh spoke. "I stood upon the banks of the Nile," he began, his eyes half closed. "But it was not as it is. The water shone like glass, reflecting not the sky, but the stars themselves, as though the heavens had fallen into its embrace." The scribe's pen scratched against the papyrus, capturing every word with reverence. Then Seti continued, "The river called my name. Its voice was neither man nor God, but something eternal. It spoke of balance, of the breath between the sky and the water, the earth and the wind. It said that to rule is not to take, but to listen. That the Nile does not belong to Egypt. Egypt belongs to the Nile." The scribe's hand stilled. His heart beat steady but full, as if the weight of the words reached beyond mere ink and parchment. This was not just a dream. It was a lesson, a truth as old as time itself. "What does it mean, my pharaoh?" he dared to ask. Seti's gaze finally met his, golden like the desert at dusk. A slow breath left his lips. "It means that the river does not flow for us alone. The stars do not shine for one man. A kingdom endures not through war nor gold, but through harmony. When the Nile thrives, so do its people. When it suffers, so too shall we." Outside, the wind stirred, whispering through the temple corridors, brushing against the stone walls as if carrying the echoes of ancient voices. The scribe felt its touch upon his skin, cool and fleeting, like the fingers of the gods themselves. His pen moved once more, inscribing the final words. And as he placed the scroll aside, his eyelids grew heavy. The weight of wisdom, of understanding, settled over him like a soft linen shroud. The wind sang its lullaby through Thebes, and the scribe, the keeper of the pharaoh's dream, drifted into sleep, knowing that long after the ink had faded, the Nile's truth would remain. The night stretched vast and infinite above the quiet village, where the Nile flowed like a ribbon of liquid silver beneath the stars. A warm breeze carried the scent of papyrus and damp earth, rustling through the reeds along the riverbank. At the edge of the village, atop a worn stone platform, an old astronomer sat cross-legged, his eyes lifted to the heavens. Beside him, his young apprentice adjusted the bronze arm of a star chart, carefully aligning it with the constellations above. The boy's fingers trembled slightly, not from the chill of the night, but from the quiet thrill of discovery. "Master, the star is there," the apprentice whispered, pointing just above the horizon. The astronomer nodded, his face illuminated by the flickering oil lamp beside them. He had spent decades watching the skies, tracing the celestial dance of the gods. Yet this star, this one lone star that shimmered where the heavens met the earth, had always called to him. "That star, my boy," the old man murmured, "has burned in the sky since before the first stone of Thebes was laid. It has guided kings and farmers alike, just as the Nile has carried life through this land." The boy furrowed his brow, his gaze shifting between the sky and the slow-moving river below. "But the stars change," he said. "Some vanish, others are born. Even the gods themselves have not remained the same." A small smile tugged at the corners of the astronomer's lips. He reached out and tapped the edge of the star chart, where careful etching showed the shifting patterns of the cosmos. "Yes, the stars shift. Time shapes the heavens, just as the winds shape the dunes. But there is something that does not change." He gestured toward the river, its surface smooth as glass beneath the moon. "Do you see?" The boy followed his gaze, watching how the water moved, slow and eternal. "The Nile," the old man continued, "has carried the dreams of our people for thousands of years. It flows as it always has, whispering to those who listen. And just like that star, it remains, not in stillness, but in purpose." The apprentice stared at the water, listening. For the first time, he understood. The river was never the same, yet always constant. It twisted and turned, rose and fell, but its journey never ceased. "So long as the Nile flows," the astronomer said, his voice barely above the hush of the wind, "our people will endure. And so long as that star burns in the sky, we will always find our way." The boy let out a slow breath, his heart steadying. He looked up once more at the lone star, watching it pulse softly in the darkness. Dawn was beginning to creep over the horizon, staining the sky in shades of amber and violet. The astronomer exhaled, satisfied. Another night had passed. Another secret of the universe whispered to those willing to hear. And as the sun kissed the surface of the river, the apprentice smiled, knowing that though the night had ended, the star, like the Nile, would always return.